Hello and welcome to Low Carb Conversations. I'm your host, Leah Williamson, and I'm with my host, Holly Jean. Hi, Holly.
Hi, Leah. How are you?
I'm great. Happy holidays to you.
Happy holidays. I know we're recording right in the holidays for you.
Yeah, well, it's Christmas Eve here in Australia today, even though we won't be airing this one until after Christmas on Monday, but it's Christmas Eve here. I'm feeling a bit festive, so I've got my festive green on like you do.
I have my green on too.
And I'm at my holiday beach house. We've come away for a week and we're staying in our house on the beach, which is really nice. About a short walk, 5-minute walk to the beach, which has been really lovely. And getting a lot of sun. So I'm looking a bit tanned, and I'm sitting in their, I don't know, sitting room, pretending I'm a lady drinking tea with my lovely wallpaper behind me, if you're watching the
video. Well, how nice, soaking up all that vitamin D on vacation.
That's right. It's nice. When we go away, we always get a house, if we can, or a unit, depending on where we go, that has a kitchen so that we can still make all of our meals. And so it's pretty early in the morning here. So we've just had our usual breakfast with veggies and eggs and a bit of bacon, and we usually have lunch around the house, or we go out for lunch and then we might have dinner at home. So we don't go out every meal, so then you're not feeling like blah the whole of the holidays.
Yeah, that's nice.
Even though we went out last night and had Mexican, which is always a bit blah.
It's called balance.
It is balance. There's no low carb in Mexican, right?
No, you know what? So Mexican food is a very huge part of my life, especially growing up in Southern California. Like, it's not even Mexican food to me, it's just food. Like, that's a lot of just what we eat all the time. And so there really are ways to do it low carb if you could manage to skip the chips and salsa basket, which I never can, but I do pretty well just ordering. Like, you can always get like a plate of fajitas and do all the meat and veggies and just skip the rice and beans. So I always find something.
I can't speak for all Mexican in Australia, but I feel like there's not a lot of that kind of stuff in Australia. I think it's just more your burrito, enchilada. I was able to switch out the rice for a salad, and I love the salad. It's just like got like bits of cauliflower and cabbage, and I think it even has green apple in it and a bit of cheese and stuff through it. So it was
nice.
Pretty nice salad. Standard. I don't know if that's a real Mexican salad, but that's a real Mexican Australian salad.
Yeah, our Mexican salads usually have like raw pepitas on them and like crumbled cotija cheese. And that's kind of it. Not really veggies. And they use some kind of like an avocado dressing, like a creamy dressing.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, and extra guacamole, of course. That's what I had, a lot of guacamole and a couple of margaritas. And I always get the classic margarita. So
oh, not the skinny ones?
Well, we don't have skinny ones here, so I don't know if that's, yeah.
So you can do skinny margaritas where instead of using like all the mixers, like the syrupy, like triple sec and the juice, you can do it where it's just tequila and fresh squeezed lime juice.
Oh, yum. I think
and soda water.
Oh, nice. That sounds pretty good. Mm-hmm. I had fresh lime, Cointreau, because I went top shelf, and the tequila. I didn't want a headache today.
Yeah, that does. The quality of alcohol definitely makes a difference.
And then I've been up early this morning, 5:30, to the local seafood place in Australia, because seafood is what we usually have for Christmas on the Christmas Day menu. So I got a kilo of cooked prawns, lobster. We have these Moreton Bay bugs, which are really delicious. So we got some bugs and some oysters. So we're ready for tomorrow. Probably just make some salad. Got some pavlova for dessert, which has mango on it and cream, and and that's pretty much our Christmas.
So is that just traditional for your family, or is that like a traditional Christmas dish in Australia?
A lot of people
use the fresh seafood.
A lot of people do fresh seafood because it's just too hot to turn the oven on in a lot of places in Australia. I'm pretty sure people still, like, we've got a little kind of turkey breast to have a bit of turkey, but sitting down to a full hot meal during the middle of summer is, you could imagine it's not the yummiest kind of,
Yeah.
you don't feel like it, especially if you're cooking all day and stuff like that. So yeah, people today, if they haven't, like, they've been showing on the news, places in Sydney, people have been lined up for hours just to get fresh seafood today. So
Wow.
yeah.
I was thinking about you this week as I was driving, and it was cold here, and I was thinking of like a white Christmas and where we get all these songs of winter wonderlands and white Christmases and stuff, because half of the world is not having snow or cold weather at Christmas time. So I wonder where all those things came from. They must have been like originated here in the States.
Yeah, it must have been, or England, or, and a lot of our culture comes from England and then America. So we still sing all those songs, but we do have
on the beach.
Yeah, we do have some pretty funny Australian songs too. Like there's this one, I forget who sings in it. I think maybe it's Rolf Harris, which he's I think he's like not very, I think people don't like him anymore. He might have been doing some naughty things. Which we won't talk about, but there's a song called I think it's called like 10 White Boomers, which is about kangaroos. So when that comes on, everyone's like, Snow White Boomers.
That's funny.
Yeah. Well, this episode, it's a co-host episode, we're recapping our highlights of 2021 and sharing a little bit of our favorite episodes that we really enjoyed. And also we're going to share a bit of our personal business highlights of the year and what we're looking forward to in 2022, maybe express a bit of gratitude because this is the season, right? And yeah, so we'll get started. So the first episode of 2021, we started off with Gary Taubes. So we hit it big in 2021 with an interview with Gary Taubes, which was about his new book that had come out, The Case for Keto. Seems so long ago now, even though the year seems to have gone quick. When I was looking back, I was like, wow, we interviewed him over a year ago now. So it's just like, yeah, hard to believe. So yeah, what do you remember much about that interview, Holly?
I do. I remember being so nervous for it because that was probably one of my first like bigger names on the podcast to interview. But I mean, he's such a pro. It was so easy. And that was such a nice conversation to have. And he's written so many books that are on my shelf. So it was really just kind of like an honor to be able to have a conversation with him.
Yeah, and he's so well spoken. He's done lots of podcast interviews before, so really easy to interview. And yeah, and then I think the book was a great success for him and started off the year that way. So yeah, that was episode 406 if you didn't listen to it, or if you want to go back and be reminded about it. So that's how we started off the year. And then I don't know if we ever acknowledged, but Amber took a break from the podcast. So we started the year with 3 co-hosts. Then she decided a little bit through to take a break. She had a lot of study that was going on. And since then she's decided she probably won't be returning back to the podcast now. So we want to thank Amber for her contribution for just a short while, but enjoyable while, and wish her all the best with her studying and future endeavors. We also, another highlight, we started off our YouTube channel. Holly, do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yes. So now instead of doing just audio on our episodes, we now have video. So if you are ever in a place where maybe you're not driving and you would like to see our smiley faces and our guests, you can check out our YouTube channel where we are recording all of our interviews on video. And you can see us all now, which is nice because especially when there's 3 of us on, to be able to see each other and to see social cues, so we're not talking over each other or waiting for someone else to speak. It's really nice to see each other's faces.
Yeah.
And so definitely go out and check out our YouTube channel if you are listening and can also be viewing.
And it's just under Low Carb Conversations if you're having a look for it. I think already looking at the stats, we had Dr. Don Clum. His video has been most viewed. Dr. Ken Berry's one of the other ones that have been most viewed, and Dr. Kate Shanahan's have been most viewed. So they're ones that on the video side of thing, on YouTube side of thing, that people are searching for and coming across and finding most interesting. So if you haven't checked those ones out, we're probably going to talk about a couple of those in a minute anyway, but that's what's happening over in video land. And I think it's been a great format for us as well. Like you were saying, we're able to see each other, we're able to have more social cues, we're not talking over the top of each other. Not that we ever do really, but sometimes when you only have the audio, you're kind of like waiting to see if the person's going to speak next, and sometimes you end up with a little bit of dead air. But I think it's just been a lot more easier for us technology wise as well. We've gotten rid of having to use Skype, which is a pretty ordinary program.
It was clunky. Yeah. Well, and the other nice thing about YouTube too is that it's such a good search engine. So if you're searching for specific topics that we've been speaking about, it's easier to find it just doing like a regular internet search or a YouTube search. It's more likely to come up there than in podcast form. So going forward for the future and just for longevity of the show, it'll be much easier to find certain topics and guests via YouTube instead of through the podcast platforms.
Definitely. And another highlight of the year, Holly, I looked like you did the most records of the year. You had like quite a few solo records this year. We kept you busy.
I did, yeah. Well, there was a while there when our schedules just did not match up, and you were working a lot at the studio, and so I stepped in to save the day.
You did. You saved us a lot, which is really good, and hopefully you've enjoyed doing a few solo episodes. Anyway, it's kind of a different atmosphere. You kind of like for me personally, I sometimes think, oh, am I going to have enough to say, because there's not that extra person, but then you have this different kind of feel about it, which is good too.
Yeah, and I think sometimes on the solo episodes, like we can go a little bit deeper into topics and conversations too, because it's just that one-on-one.
Yeah. All right, well, why don't you tell us what was some of your favorite episodes of the year?
I had a few favorite episodes. And actually, since we're on the subject of solo episodes, two of those were solo. Actually, a few of them were solo episodes that I had. Most recent, well, should I start old? Let's go old to new. I guess probably the oldest one was with Dr. Jockers. And that was just like a highlight in my life because I've been just such a huge fan of his for so long. And I've seen him speak at several conferences and I just really like him. And so having that conversation with him was so good. And we talked about inflammation and disease pathways. And he's so knowledgeable and just a really good conversationalist. And so I really like the way he's able to share information in a way that's easy to understand, even though he is so knowledgeable in it. He has a good way of making things succinct. So that was a favorite of mine. And then another favorite was with Dr. Don Clum. And that was actually like one of those surprise interviews where you're not really sure where it's going to go or how it's going to go. But as you said, it's been one of our most popular YouTube videos. And it was such a good conversation because we talked about blood sugar and insulin resistance and the disease pathways that come from having insulin resistance. And sometimes, like, I feel like people understand that balancing blood sugar is important and that having good metabolic health is important, but really understanding the whys behind how those mechanisms in our body work and how we can make small changes in our lifestyle and our diet to make big impacts in terms of our health and our chances of getting disease and even reversing disease. And so that was a really good conversation and we went down a lot of little rabbit holes in that one. So that was great. And What else? Oh, I had another solo episode. It was a recent one with Rebecca Farmer. And if you haven't listened to that one, she is just so inspirational. I can't tell you. I think that's probably an episode that I got the most like private messages and comments on, of just how much they loved that, her story and her message, and how motivating and inspiring she is. And so that was a really good one too.
Yeah, they were all great episodes. For me, I loved, and you probably love this one too, episode 14 with Timothy Hammond. He's the community gardener, and he just talks so much about, how gardening can make a community, how, gardening can save a community, basically. Like, there was just so much beautiful moments in that episode. I felt like afterwards I was like, I need to go and start or join a community garden. And I just thought, like, it was very surprising because I hadn't really heard of him before. I think you knew of him, Holly, and he was just a really lovely person and a great interview with that one. So that was 414 with Timothy Hammond. And then another one I really enjoyed was episode 421 with Jen Couch, I think that's how you say her name, from Sober Sis. And she was talking to us about drinking alcohol and ways to reduce it, or other looking at maybe still enjoying your happy hour but switching it out for non-alcoholic drinks, which is a kind of a refreshing approach that I thought was really great. She was kind of like saying, you can still do all the things that you would do when you were drinking, just without the alcohol. And I kind of really hadn't thought about that approach before. I kind of was like, when you abstain, that's it, but she was so right. I liked, like, she's like, have happy hour with your friends, but still make up all these beautiful mocktails and things like that. So she was really great to talk to. I really liked our episode 430 with Keith Norris. He's always such a great guy to interview. He had a new book out at that time as well, which was a really great book. Holly, you loved reading that book, didn't you? So that's a good one. Did you want to say anything about that episode?
Oh, I said, yeah, I really like that book. I believe it was Primal Uprising.
Yeah. And then, of course, episode 440 with Dr. Ken Berry. He's always a pleasure to chat to as well. He was really great. We talked about skin tags, which was something that was interesting we hadn't discussed before, and his thoughts on those, and hyperinsulinemia, which always hard word to say as well. I know I've got so many favorite episodes. I feel like I'm just listing all of them. I really also enjoyed episode 445 with Devin Burke about sleep. That, again, was a different approach to sleep that I really liked. The takeaway for me out of that one was you can have all the sleep aids, but if they're stressing you out trying to meet all the targets to have all the sleep aids, so if you need the lights dimmed and music and I don't know, eye masks and temperature and all your wind down things to happen, if making sure you're getting all those done is stressing you out, then it's kind of like counteracting the purpose of actually just going to sleep. So I really liked his approach, and he was a surprise too, because I had never heard of him before. We decided we'd like to talk to him, see what he had to say about sleep, and we're pretty glad that we took that risk and interviewed him and got some really great pearls of wisdom about sleep out of that one.
Yeah, and I actually share that episode quite regularly with clients, and I even have it in, like, when I do my group program, the week that we talk about sleep, I've added it in there as a resource, because it really is just such a great conversation. He has such a fresh philosophy on sleep and taking the pressures off of having to have perfect sleep or have this great sleep, and relaxing into sleep instead of stressing about sleep.
That's right. And another one I really enjoyed was episode 448 with Michael McNeil. Holly, you found him as a guest. He's the holistic connector. I think that's his name, isn't it? Something like that. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we thought we were talking about parasites, but it got a little bit more spiritual and into it down the line as well. So that was a great chat around philosophy and parasites. So So yeah, we've had some pretty great guests, and sometimes I find that, like, while I love interviewing the big names and we all want to hear from them and what they have to say, because they've always got so much interesting stuff, some of the kind of more quieter ones, or ones that you might not have heard of, have some really interesting things to say. So I'm glad that we can give some of those people like a platform to be able to share their stories and their journeys and their information with you listeners, because otherwise we might not have heard these pearls of wisdom before.
Yeah, we really do have a diverse group of guests, and it's so great to be able to have a wide variety of guests as well as a wide variety of topics that we discuss too.
Yeah, and there's so many more facets of health than just eating a low carb diet, which I hope that you appreciate when we bring different guests with different points of views on as well. And you might not agree with all of them. I don't know if we agree with all of them, but it's always interesting to hear a different point of view and a different way of looking at things. And, every episode there's a little bit of wisdom that we take out of it that we hadn't heard before, which keeps us thinking about health in different ways as well.
Mm-hmm. Always something to learn.
Always. So Holly, what are some of your maybe business highlights this year, or interesting things? And, maybe what are you looking forward to bringing into 2022?
Man, I feel like this year, 2021, that had so many changes for me in business and personal life. So I moved out of state. And so that means the gym that I was working in, where I had my practice in California, I had to close that down, and I moved, and I've since switched to having more of a virtual practice, which is what I was working towards anyways. So sometimes things just fall into alignment there. So I am working more virtually with clients now. And so there is that. And also my practice has kind of evolved a little bit. Instead of just doing where I was doing just very like basic functional nutrition that we learned in NTA, is now have a little bit of a wider scope, where I'm looking more into environmental toxins and mindset and all the other things that play into wellness, where nutrition is still the base. But I have these other aspects that I'm looking to as well. And going into 2022, I am now a real estate agent. And so since I have moved out to Oklahoma for mental health and health freedom reasons, there's been a lot of people that have been interested in moving out of California as well, because there are a lot of things about California that are quite toxic, especially when it comes to health. And so this is just one more way that I'm able to help people live their healthiest lives, by helping them live in a home, in a place that they love. And also going into this next year, I'm very excited to start homesteading, because we have been on our property now it'll be coming up to a year in the spring, when we'll be ready to get chickens. And I'd really like to get a couple cows and maybe a goat or something. I don't know. I'm ready to get all the animals. And so maybe those are conversations we can start having more of on the podcast, of how to be more self-sustainable and self-reliant, and how to do more regenerative gardening and living and stuff. So those are conversations that I'm looking forward to having. And that is how my life has changed and my business has changed. And those are things I'm looking forward to in the new year.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. And I love that, you can see now with this spread of everything that's happening, around the world, things do not seem to be getting better at the moment. Being more self-sufficient and more self-reliable is going to be even more important, like it is already. So yeah, bringing some of those tips through, and maybe, talking to some interesting experts around those areas. One of my dream wishes to get on the podcast, hopefully in the next year, is Dr. Zach Bush. So if he's listening,
Yes.
we'd love to have you on the podcast. So that's who was coming to mind when you were talking about that. So I was like, yes, we have to get him on. I've been wanting to interview him for a while.
All right, we're putting it out into the universe. That's going to happen in 2022.
Yeah. So yeah, I've had an interesting.
How about you? Yeah.
Yeah, interesting year as well. So just before the pandemic started, I started my yoga studies. So that was back in 2020, and spent pretty much most of lockdown and 2020 like studying, learning how to become a yoga teacher. And to backtrack on that story, and I don't know if I've shared it, I had a bit of a personal kind of crisis, stressful, traumatic event that happened to me a couple of years prior, that caused a lot of stress in my life, and maybe one day I'll feel like talking about that as well. And I just was kind of like on this perpetual hamster wheel of feeling completely stressed out all the time, and I knew I needed to do something about it, but I wasn't quite sure how to do it, or what to do about it. And even though I was still eating my perfect kind of, as perfect as we like to say, low carb paleo lifestyle, my blood sugar was still really dysregulated because my stress levels were so high, and this was causing consequential health impacts for me. And so I just kind of was like, I'm just going to study yoga, and maybe the study of yoga will help me to learn to de-stress. I've always found myself drifting back to yoga after periods of time, but never had really committed fully to it. So I spent the year committed to yoga and trained as a yoga teacher. And then I discovered that, I'd love to share the joy of yoga with other people. And so this year I've been working as a yoga teacher. Teaching yin yoga is one of my most favorite yoga to teach. It's very introspective. It asks you to look inwards. It helps you to slow down. I feel like that's one of my most favorite yoga classes to teach. It's a deep stretch. We stretch the fascia, and then, inside the fascia, and this is some things I'd love to talk about on the podcast as well, about storing different kinds of trauma in the body and how we can release the trauma, because that's also a big impact on your health as well. That's more on that, physical side rather than the nutrition side, but that all has that compounding effect on each other. So that's where the journey has led me this year, and also teaching Pilates reformer as well, kind of thrown into there. And, and I was having a few busy periods because I was kind of like working here, there and everywhere. But towards the end of this year, everything's kind of culminated in having one steady job at one yoga studio, teaching these practices, working on my women's circle. So getting groups of women together to connect and share stories, which is also another really important facet of health. If you think back to our ancestral days, we used to sit around the campfire and share our stories and help one another. And, we're reenacting this in a modern day with the women's circles. And so that's something that I'm really passionate about as well. So I feel like while nutrition is still number one for me, I'm still looking at different areas and aspects of health that go along with that. And in the new year, I have a new program that I'm releasing as well. It's called Creating Healthy Habits for Life. So we know a lot about nutrition. Most people do. People know what's right and what's wrong, but how can we make these habits stick rather than just looking for the next new thing? Like, we've seen this with many of the dietary movements where we're moving from paleo, we're moving to keto, we're moving to carnivore, whatever we're evolving to next. We're just always looking for this next dietary lifestyle to try and help us. But what about making some of those habits stick? That's some of the small changes, like you were talking about, Holly, just small things, small tweaks that can lead to big positive changes in your life. So that's something I'm looking at releasing in the new year, which I'm really excited about, as well as continuing with my yoga and Pilates as well. So yeah, that's me.
I love that. I didn't realize how much we have grown and evolved over this last year. And like nutrition is always going to be at the core. That's always going to be at the foundation, because you have to have your nutrition right to be able to expand and grow in your movement, in your exercise, in your mindset, in your environment, and in your interests in life, because if we don't have our nutrition right, we're not feeling good, our mind isn't right, we don't have the energy to pursue these other interests and these other areas of health. And so I think no matter what, no matter where our personal interests go or where our businesses evolve, nutrition is always going to be at the core and at the center of it all, because without nutrition, we don't have full health.
Yeah, so true. I love how you summarize everything so nicely, Holly.
Oh, thank you.
So 2022 in terms of the podcast, I think Holly and I just continuing on, enjoying speaking to you every week and lining up some new guests, getting them ready for the new year. I really want to give a shout out to our sponsors this year. They've been absolutely amazing. So we've had Cacao Bliss, which is the most yummiest cacao ever. We do talk about it a fair bit. But I bet you're enjoying the hot cocoa at the moment, Holly. Yeah, definitely.
I am, and I'm still enjoying my little mug cakes. And I have to be honest, my kids don't love the Cacao Bliss because it's not that sweet chocolate. But I keep trying to sneak it into them because I know it is full of all sorts of good superfoods and everything. And I almost have it to where it can go undetected and they like it. So once I perfect that, I will share my kid approved Cacao Bliss recipe.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm enjoying having a cold Cacao Bliss at the moment because it's so hot. I feel like I'm sweating here at the moment in this hot room. So we had Cacao Bliss. So yeah, awesome sponsor. We love, and like we always say, we only go with sponsors that we love and like to share with everybody else. So we
actually use.
Yeah, that's right. If we can get them in Australia. Also, speaking of one, which is such a great sponsor that we've had, but I'm not able to get it in Australia, and I always have FOMO every time I see Holly eating them, is the Outer Isle cauliflower crusts. So want to talk about those, Holly?
Yes, I love them. And now I see people posting that they have them at their Costco. I have not seen them at my Costco yet, but yes, I love the cauliflower crust. They have the bigger ones for doing pizzas. The kids will definitely eat them. The cauliflower goes fully undetected. So we'll do build your own pizza nights. And especially now, like I'm eating them because it's colder, it's darker in the morning. I want toast in the morning. I want something. And that little cauliflower toasted in the toaster oven with some butter, it really just hits that spot for me. And so, yes, I cannot wait for Outer Isle to have them at a Costco near me because I definitely eat them in bulk size and would like to have that. So I keep seeing everyone posting look at these are my Costco scores, and I have yet to score them from Costco, but I do love them. And we'll continue to share them. And they have all different flavors too. I'm really liking there's like a jalapeno flavor. There's an Italian flavor. So I'll use the jalapeno one when we're doing taco night, and I'll just replace my taco shell with the cauliflower crust and do the Italian one, do some little like garlic bread with some melted cheese on it. So good.
Sounds so good. I'm mouth-wateringly wanting some now.
Yeah, they're versatile. You can use it for everything.
Yeah. And then we had our Mountain Rose sponsor as well. So lovely dried herbs. And I saw actually Patty, who was on a couple of episodes back, I just saw she's doing a little herbal course and she was using all the Mountain Rose products, which was really awesome as well. And I know you order from them as well, Holly.
Yeah, I have some sprouting seeds I'm waiting to try. So I have some broccoli sprouts and some alfalfa sprouts. So that's going to be, as soon as I can have a space to figure out how to do that, I will be doing some sprouting seeds.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. All right. I think that was our list of sponsors, wasn't it? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it was so great working with them. And yeah, and it's been wonderful to be able to share these products with you guys as well. So Thank you to our sponsors for the year to keep the podcast going. And we also want to give a shout out to Kevin Kennedy Spain of Disc of Light Media, because he's really the one that's putting all this together behind the scenes, editing everything, putting it together, putting those ads in, putting the music in and the intros and everything like that. So Kevin works pretty hard behind the scenes there, making sure that we have our professional finish for you guys.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin. Well, Holly, I don't know if I've got anything else to share. Do you?
I don't. I can't believe this is our last episode of the year.
It is, yeah. And back in 2022 with even more episodes to share. We've got a special one next week, which is all around New Year's, setting New Year's intentions that I recorded a little while back, but it's just perfect timing going into the new year for some reflection, for some inspiration of maybe thinking about setting intentions, or maybe just setting some goals, or maybe just some healthy habits. So that episode may give you some food for thought, no pun intended. And then, yeah, we'll be back with the first episode of the year with something special that we haven't cooked up yet.
Yeah, and I would love for the new year, for 2022, to really get to know our listeners and our audience, and to find out what episodes you guys have enjoyed the most. And if you're wanting us to have any particular guests on, please reach out. We are on Instagram. We do respond to our DMs. We are on Facebook, and we would love for you to leave us some reviews. Let us know if you're enjoying the show, how you're enjoying the show, because that will help us to continue to keep going and keep bringing on great sponsors. And we would just love to hear from you.
Yeah, that's so true. And working towards our 500th episode. It's not, maybe not too far off. We're getting up there.
Wow.
I know, goes so fast. All right. Well, thanks, everyone. Thanks, Holly. Happy holidays to you and your family.
Thanks, Leah. You too.
And happy holidays.
I'll see you next year.
I'll see you next year. Yeah. Dad joke. Thanks to our listeners. We love you guys. Thanks for always tuning in. Happy holidays to you and your families. And that's the end of today's episode. Our theme music is created by Andrew Bowden, and production services are by Kevin Kennedy Spain of Disc of Light Media. See you next year.